प्ययन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक् प्राणश्चक्षु श्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मेस्तु तदात्मनि निरते य उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Om. May all my limbs attain strength. May the body, the mind, all the sensory and motor organs and the life force become powerful, efficient. All is verily the one without second, ever blissful, ever perfect, Brahman, the existence itself. May I never deny this truth of Brahman. May the truth never reject me either. I am aware that realization of this truth requires attainment of certain virtues which are spoken by the scriptures. May all those virtues be with me. Om, peace, peace, peace. Let us feel the truth of the oneness of existence by going beyond the appearance of the forms. Let us imagine everything around, including one's own form, is like ice cubes, lots of them kept in a tray in warm weather. I am seeing I am one of those ice cubes, different from others. Some ice cubes are near me, some are away from me. I get connected to some of them. I like those. I don't like others. but with the warmth the shapes are changing. They are merging with each other. And the one substance is becoming visible. I am experiencing that intense oneness. It is bliss itself. For there are no desires. It is peace itself. Om. Peace, peace, peace. So let us begin this 124th class of Srimad Bhagavatam, a text that is mainly about the attaining the purpose of life through devotion to it. God is the purpose of life. One way of defining God is the ultimate goal or purpose of life. And attainment of that divine is described in the scripture as the result of the grace of that God to the devotees. So, let us begin with our usual chant, which is the first verse of this Srimad Bhagavatam. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditaratashchartheshvabhinyasvarat tene brahmahridaya adikavaye मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि. That from whom creation, sustenance and dissolution of the universe take place, who is both the instrumental and material cause of it, who is omniscient, is the only one having self-mastery, being the one independent entity, who illumined the mind of Brahma with the Vedic revelation, whose wisdom is the wonder of even the greatest sages, in whom the world of the three gunas subsist just as the combination of materials like fire, water and earth subsist in their causes without changing their elemental nature, in whose consciousness there is nothing false. On that supreme truth we meditate. So this is a meditation on the supreme truth. That is another way of looking at what is called God. God is the truth supreme, which transcends all the relative appearances of that truth. So everything is pervaded, penetrated by truth, which alone is. And the appearances, they keep on shifting and changing, because each of us is an appearance, and we get identified with that appearance, and thus get confused. Getting identified with an appearance makes us feel, what is this? Who am I? Because whatever we identify keeps shifting and changing, like the ice cube that we were thinking of during meditation. I am so and so, but while I am saying this or thinking this, it changes. So therefore, we have to go beyond these appearances and see the underlying reality. So this scripture, like all other Vedanta scriptures, is showing the way to do it through lot of stories. We are having today's class after more than a month-long gap. So when we stopped, we were discussing the story of Ajamila. Ajamila, that story illustrates the tremendous tremendous efficacy of the name of God. Name has tremendous efficacy. That is why when somebody in the class is dozing, I take the name of that person. Hey Charlie, and Charlie just shakes the head, because the name can address a person. So therefore, when we take the name of God, it invokes that divine feeling in us. And all those things which we did because of identification with body, they are in a way sin. Sin because they are against the truth. identifying with the body is error, a mistake. And therefore, in that sense, what we do with that because of that identification is not right. It is against the nature of the truth. And so it is called sin. Some sins appear to be nice, good. Some others, they actually appear as bad. But as Jnaneshwar Maharaj says, that these are both actually from the highest point of view of truth. Both are sins, and the way to actually get freed from the sins is to feel our true identity. And the way to feel that true identity is keep on thinking, repeating the name of God. So, the whole story of Ajamila was an illustration of this. And then there was the discussion as to what is then the use of performing so many different kinds of rituals, austerities, and so forth. At the end of the story, Yama, the dispenser of death and then the future of the soul after the death, his emissaries could not snatch the soul of Ajamila, but therefore they were a little puzzled that what was the problem. Till then they didn't face any such situation. The Yama's rule is supreme according to what they had understood. And then so when they went back to Yama, they asked what happened. And Yama explained that all is under the control of one supreme reality, including himself. And he calls that following that reality, that supreme truth, is the Bhagavata Dharma. Dharma has a very complex, very pervasive meaning actually. It is normally one translates it as religion, means a belief system. But dharma is not exactly just a belief system. It is also the way that one progresses in life. It also determines what is the essential of a thing or a person. Therefore, it is said it is dharma of sugar to have this sweet taste. Dharma of sugar is to taste sweet. So, there you cannot, in the common way, translate it as religion. That it is not, you won't say that it is the religion of sugar to taste sweet. But in this Vedanta literature and in general in the Sanskrit language, you will find that the word dharma has all these different shades, connotations, and so forth, where dharma also means the very nature of a thing, its expression, its way of action, and so forth. And so the Yama is explaining to his emissaries that Bhagavata Dharma is when we think of God. Spoke of this dharma of sugar. So Bhagavata means that which pertains to God. And so this Bhagavata Dharma is thus the how the divine nature in each of us, each is after all an expression. It is so each of us has that uh, divine pulsating in us, prompting in a way to experience that, overthrowing the rule of the name and form. We are under the rule of a form, but then when we think of the divine, then we overthrow that the dominion, the stranglehold of a particular form which makes us confined to the mortality, the misery, the limitedness and imperfections. All that is the result of being confined to a form. And so the divine, which is perfection itself, wants to now overthrow these limitations and attain to perfection. So it is told that Bhagavata Dharma, is to recognize that one supreme authority. This supreme authority is to be recognized through the power of name. Yama says that this is a deep secret not understood by too many. He counts only 12, including himself, as the one who understands this deep secret of Bhagavata Dharma. And he, when it was asked that why, then the sages or the scriptures perform or prescribe so many different austerities to be performed, so many rituals to be performed. It would have been enough, isn't it? Recite the name of God and all your sins will be effaced. But then you read in scriptures so many other things to be done. Perform austerities, going to a holy place, sacrifice this, say, a goat or a cow or whatever. Thousands of very intricate rituals are prescribed. Why? Just it should have been told, recite the name of God, think of God. That would have effaced all the sins. The problem is that it takes some experience and a little purity to realize this efficacy of the name. If it is told just the name, you will be able to do. Because it is, we feel that this is such a complex thing, the problems of life. A simple name, how will it be able to do that? When something is very little, small, we fail to gauge the huge potential that is within that little or simple thing. It is. Once uh, one doctor came to me. He was the regular allopathic doctor, but even though was a doctor, he had his own physical ailments, and like he had lot of back pain, and it wasn't going away. Uh, According to the science that he learned, one has to surgically remove the extended bone. Mm. The backbone was extended by about half an inch, and so it was causing that terrible pains. So he happened to go to a homeopath, and the homeopath gave him some tiny pills, that sugar globules soaked in some particular medicine. Now this doctor felt that, well, how these little globules, sugar, my problem is how will this sugar globules be able to solve that? So he bluntly asked the homeopath, "Excuse me, sir, but I have this doubt that how my X-ray shows that there is a growth of half an inch, that backbone is grown. Now please tell me, taking these few sugar globules, how that half an inch is going to be cut? I don't see how it is going to happen." So what that homeopath told him, he didn't tell me. But he came, I was at that time sitting in the managing our library section in the mutt there, in the ashrama there. So he asked me that, I asked that homeopath, uh, so I told him, look, that growth of the bone is due to, after all, it is the food. Now, how do you know how the rice and dal and the veggies that you eat, how they become that bone and grow only in that way? You do not know that either. And yet, it is true that it is the food that is making this body. We do not know how. So, similarly, this homeopathy medication may be able to cut it, and who knows? So, uh, we, because it is very little tiny thing, we do not know the efficacy of it. It has tremendous efficacy, though very little in size. The medicine is very small, tiny something. It doesn't, then it cures you without going through that elaborate surgical intervention. I have seen how that it works. How it works, it is a very different procedure. But tiny thing also has a big power. So there is a very nice hymn, that couplet by Rahim. He was a sage, a Muslim by religion as such, but was a great devotee of Lord Krishna. So he has composed this many, many beautiful couplets called dohas. So one of those dohas is that रहीमन देख बड़े न को लघु न दीजे डाल. By comparing only in size, don't throw away something that is little. Then he gives the illustration. जहाँ काम आवे सुई का करे तलवार. Where there is the function of a tiny needle, that tiny needle which can sew the clothes. A big sword will not be able to do that job. So everything has its potential associated with it. The name Sri Ramakrishna told a story of this one man wanted to cross this sea between India and Sri Lanka. So he asked Bibhishana, how shall I do it? Now Bibhishana said, okay. He wrote something on a paper and then told him to keep that paper with him, and he will be able to go across the ocean. So this man was merrily walking on that waters, but halfway he thought, well, after all, let me find out what that thing is there on the paper. What special, must be a very complicated formula. And then he opened the paper and saw there is only name of Rama, the only word Rama was written there. And then he thought, oh, I was imagining something very complicated, something mantra would be written on this, only name of Rama. And then his faith got shattered and he sank. He sank in the water. It was the faith in that name, and that was keeping him afloat. Rama's name is more powerful than it is an exaggeration, but it is a figure of speech, that it has more power than the power of Rama himself, the name of Rama. An anecdotal thing is told that when all the army of Rama, they were all monkeys and such creatures, they were making a bridge for their army to cross from the southern tip of India into Sri Lanka to attack the Ravana. So, as they were building this bridge, they were taking up huge these rocks and uttering the name of Rama, they would hurl that into the waters, and the big heavy rocks would just float. Rama, the rock was thrown and it was floating. Rama was himself watching the wonder. My goodness, oh, how it is happening. And thought that let me also try, because all they are just taking my name and hurling the rocks, and the rocks are floating. So he said, let me also try. So he goes to the side where nobody was watching him, because he was apprehensive that if somebody finds out that he is also throwing, and in case if that rock sinks, then it will be terrible. His soldiers, these monkeys, were able to do, and he is not able to do. What a shame. So therefore he went to a corner where he was not being seen by anybody, and then took a rock, small rock to begin with, and then decided and threw it in the waters, and the rock sank, and he felt that how it happened. Fortunately, nobody has seen it. Otherwise, they will all ridicule him. But he was not that lucky. Hanuman had come there to see, so that Hanuman saw, and he saw also the consternation on the face of Rama because of his failure. The rock sank, and he consoled Rama. That is how it happens. That is how it should happen. What? You guys were throwing big rocks, taking my name, and then they did not sink. They floated. And I threw a small little one and it sank, and you say that is how it should be. I don't get it. And Hanuman said, well, Lord, whomever you will throw away has to sink. Ah, it will not be able to be afloat in this world. It will sink. So the rock also, because you threw, anyone whom you throw away is going to sink. So that is how your name is connecting that rock with you. And so uttering your name, it doesn't sink. So that is how the name is very, very powerful. So this is told here that uh, then otherwise, jivas, they don't have this name, they don't utter the name, and so they are brought to the purgatories. Yama explains that uh, whatever wrong we, his ignorant and uh, humbly saluting servants have done, may it be pardoned by the worshipful Lord, the most ancient, the indweller of everything, in the most powerful. Uh, Forbearance is an ornament. Uh, Salutations to the Supreme Being. So, and so he said here, the narrator of the story, Shuka, again tells the listener, Parikshit, that therefore, O sign of the Guru, mm, know that chanting of the Lord's name with faith and devotion is the ultimate and sure expiation for even the greatest of the sins. Nothing else will do but chanting the name of God will be able to remove all impurities by connecting you to the true nature. And then there are no sins there. With identification with body, then there is no expiation of sins. We will keep on committing different types of sins. But connect to God through the name, and I am everywhere. I am the reality. I am then connected with the truth, and thus there is no sin left at all. So this is the right way. He says that they know how or austerity purifies the heart of man so effectively as devotion generated easily by hearing and uttering the name of Sri Hari, denoting his sanctifying deeds and excellences. That is why this Bhagavatam stresses on the name of God. So, uh, because it is not easy for almost all of us just to get rid of this identification with body by the process of discernment. That no, we do it and one should do it, but that is not as effective for ordinary people, because that discernment doesn't last. Think, that even if while meditating you think that I am all pervading divine, I am not the body. It doesn't last too long. So, therefore, for some it may, like Swami Vivekananda, that is why he was called Vivekananda. Viveka means discernment. So, he was always aware of the reality beyond the form. He knew that he has to work through the form without getting identified with the form. Working using a form is fine. Like using a car is fine. You want to go somewhere, you use a car to go, excellent. But you don't identify with the car. You don't tell, what, Rajgopal, will you tell my name is Toyota? No, you don't identify with the car. You use that I use the car to go somewhere. That is excellent. But saying that I am car, now it is bad, not right at all. So similarly, I am using the vehicle of body is fine, but feeling that I am this body is not right. This is people like Vivekananda, who had that very powerful discernment. Then they are not identified with body. They enter the body, get out of it at will. Like you get into the car, get out of it. So, this capability of discernment gradually develops by the use of name that connects you to the true nature. So, Vivekananda was standing in front of the mirror. Again and again he would go and stand in front of the mirror. The host lady thought that, well, like all of us, he is also proud of his beautiful form. And Vivekananda could see the thought in her mind and said to her, you know why I am standing in front of the mirror? I have to keep on telling myself, you are this form now. You have to go and give lecture. So hold on to this form. This is the form that you will be taking and going to give lecture. I have to keep on reminding myself. See, it is. So he was not identified with the form. So for others, we have to keep on thinking of that my true nature is divine, and still the identification with form becomes so very overpowering. So therefore, this story of Ajamila illustrated this. Now, the other thing is that the story that we had read, the story of Prachetas, the sons in that lineage of Manu, now they were told to procreate. and then therefore they performed the austerities. After that, what happened? That part of the story also has to continue like a big novel. It has many threads being woven. That what happened to this? Okay, but then during that was happening, what was happening here? So now we revert back to what happened uh, long back. It was, I think, the 94th or 95th of this class. We completed uh, uh, this part of Pracheta's austerities. Now they came from that water and then saw that this whole earth is just filled with uh, these trees growing. Everywhere there were only big trees. But they had to populate the earth with different species. So they started, um, they were upset looking at these trees. And because of their power generated in this due to austerities, they started burning these trees. And while this burning was on, more than half the trees were burnt, the forests were burnt. Uh, it is described as Soma, the moon deity, told that, well, this is not your purpose of being. You have been expressly told to populate this earth. If you remove, destroy everything like this, how will you achieve it? And they were, as it were, came to their senses. When one is angry, one has no sense of what I am doing, what I am saying. So, in anger, you utter which you regret afterwards. You do things which you regret afterwards. Because anger takes you away from the proper understanding of the things. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Bhagavad Gita very expressly says that. In second chapter, it says that when you become angry, then everything, your sense of where you are, to whom you are talking, the sense of proportion, everything is gone. That it is. Therefore, the thought that if somebody might have done some little mistake and you are hurt by that, normally your sane mind may think that there should be no death penalty because probably that fellow may turn out to be innocent, or no death penalty should be there. But if somebody wronged you just a little bit, then when you become angry, you feel that that death penalty should be for this fellow. But that is out of anger. You lose the sense of proportion, and the right and wrong, everything is gone. So therefore, this moon deity reminded Prachetas, and then Prachetas, he also, that moon deity, told them to marry this daughter of the trees. So they married the daughter of the trees, and then from that a son was produced through this wedlock. The 10 prachetas, a son was born. So the son was called Daksha. And the Daksha was told that you have to now populate this earth. So now Daksha, therefore, through this his mental power, it is said that he so Daksha, who was very loving to his, he had 10 daughters. Daksha got 10 daughters, uh, and then uh, they got married, but that Daksha saw that it is all these things that he has been creating, it is not propagating as fast as it should have. After all, a little bit here and there, that is not going to do the job. It is like uh, putting out a big fire, like the big forest fires, that you cannot put a drop of water here and there to get rid of it. So Daksha saw that it is described here, seeing that with this kind of creative process there was no satisfactory progress of creation, Daksha went to Vindhya mountains. So he decided to perform austerities. So uh, it is told here that in the Vindhya mountains there is a lake, Aghamarshana. The meaning of this name, Aghamarshana, means Agha means sins. So removal of the sins is the purpose of taking bath in that lake. So he was doing it 3 times, and then he extolled the worshipful Lord, who is not perceived by the senses, with the hymn known as Hamsa Guhya, which pleased the Lord very much. I shall transmit it to you. That is what Shuka is telling the king Parikshit. That this is what Daksha did, that propitiating the Lord through this hymn known as Hamsa Guhya Stotra. Hamsa is indicative of the soul. That is, therefore, it is told that even in our emblem you will see that there is the swan representing the soul that is beyond the senses. Nobody can see the soul with the eyes, but it is using the eyes the soul sees. Eyes cannot see the soul. As eyes are objects and instruments. Now the eye is an instrument to see an object. Say the eye is seeing the chair in front of you, but the chair is not able to see the eye. So the eye is seeing the chair. So similarly, the senses are not able to see the soul. Again and again you will find this being expressed in Vedantic literature, that it is just to make you aware that one may have tremendous progress of science, but if that science is limited to the sense of this, our knowing through the senses and analyzing that information through brain and mind, that is only going to be of that level. It will not be able to make us see the truth or God. So the soul or the God is beyond these senses. And so one has to transcend that. So it is called Guhya, that Hamsa Guhya Stotra. Guhya means something that is hidden. No? Like inside the cave, you don't see what is in there. So Guha also means a cave. So it is hidden. It is sometimes in the this is called Guhahitam Gauhareshtham Puranam. Guhahitam means being hidden. Uh, it is not apparent to the senses, but it is there. We all feel that we have a soul. Mhm. So it is the inner essence of everything also gets called soul. So everything has a soul. Where it is, you cannot find it. It is not catchable by the senses or the mind. And so the scientists say that, well, there is no soul because you cannot see it through your microscopes or other instruments. Not possible. You cannot analytically understand it because it is, after all, another way that mind is functioning in analysis. So it cannot get, therefore, to the soul. So, but we all know that it is there. Everybody knows that I am, but that I cannot be found out. So, this hymn he recited to Lord, and it is a great hymn that it is, it begins like this, Prajapati Ruvacha. Another name of Daksha is Prajapati. Nama paraya vitathanubhutaye gunatrayabhas nimitta bandhave. It is the words in this Bhagavatam, they are unique in their beautiful formation and the tremendous meaning that each of them contains. It is like condensing these days, like you do the zip filing. That in a small file, many files are combined, and then again each of that file has lot of information. So, like that it is, these words, they condense so much of meaning. So, salutations to the Supreme Being. So, what I read in one Sanskrit line, the translation goes 5 lines. So, and again is not still exact. Salutations to the Supreme Being, whose experience is truth abiding, who is the sustainer of both Maya and the Jiva, whose glorious presence is not felt by people with intelligence overpowered by longing for material fulfillments, who transcends all the ordinary means of knowledge but is intuited as self-effulgent consciousness. So it is, that is what is being praised, invoked through this Hamsa Guhya Stotra. We shall continue the discussion. It's a very beautiful, tremendously profound hymn, and so we shall continue this in our next class. Let us conclude this with the our closing chant, today's class. So, Recite loudly, as loud as you can. Hmm. निगमकल्पतरुर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुर्हो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः. O devotees, quaff to intoxication this nectar of the fruit of the tree of Vedas, flowing from the mouth of the great sage Shuka and mixed with the ambrosia from his words. If you have any questions, you can ask after meditating on what we studied for, say, a minute or less. Any questions? Adi Maharaj has a question.
I'm wondering, what is the effect if, let's say, an incarnation of God takes, what is the effect on us if an incarnation of God takes our name and focuses on our name?
Our name?
Like one of us, yes.
Incarnation of God taking our name. See, God has no, there is no change in God. But when, so the effect on us, when God takes my name, well, God doesn't take my name because God doesn't do as such anything. It only invokes you to think of God. So, God takes my name to remind me that that is what I should be doing, and take the name of God. The effect is on us, not on God. So, God's taking my name is just to remind me that take the name of God. So, God is the inspirer, initiator of every act. So when, say, Adi Maharaj is taking the name of God, that also is really inspired by God. So that is the God taking your name, so that you take the name of God. Any other question? Any other question upstairs?
Yes. There is one web question. From David. From David Cordero.
David, yes, David.
What is the best way, or how can one manage such anger when it arises so as not to lose one's sense of discrimination and thereby one's way through improper action, speech, thought, and so on?
Yes, dear David, this is a problem that many face, that anger should not rise is okay, but what if it suddenly makes an appearance? Then what should I do? It is at that time, like the fire. There shouldn't be fire here that would burn the building. It should not be. But it sometimes does happen. That is why there is that the fire department is there. They have their fire trucks and all that. So we also have to summon some such emergency measure to control the anger at that point. But one has to remember that this is just a temporary measure. It should be followed. So when there was a fire and say the fire people, those fire truck and those people come, they tell that don't do like this, otherwise there would be fire again. And so you have to put these things, put this sprinkler system, all that, so that it will contain the damage. So similarly, the anger comes and you have to summon the anger extinguishers, like fire extinguisher, anger extinguishers. Uh, and that is the name of God and controlled breathing. It is that uh, control the breath and then means regulate it. Deep breath, hold it, release it consciously while uttering some holy formula, name of God, mantra, like that. And then that will temporarily remove the anger. It will have some damage, but not so much. So it is, but this is just an emergency measure. One should see that the anger does not arise at all. So, for that one should keep up the practice of constantly thinking of God, or as much as one can, because this is an evolutionary path. Slowly one will be able to master it. So, take the name of God, build in that awareness that God is indweller of everything. And so you will be able to connect to God by seeing that indwelling thing. If you see the form, you will not be able to do that. And since that form, the anger is towards that form, that expression, not to the indweller. So it is when you look at the indweller, the anger will disappear. So that habit is to be cultivated. That is really the spiritual life, changing the awareness. The bad habit of just being aware of the form. Imagine, if you say go and buy a box of ice cream and are aware only of the box, what will happen? You will miss the ice cream. You won't, by licking the box, do you get the ice cream? It will frustrate you, it will just make you angry. That is how one gets angry in this world. But take out the box, look at what is inside, and then the anger will go away. So this is what the way to remove the anger is. Thank you. Any other question? So let us conclude with the closing chant. मुकुंद माधव गोविंद बोल, केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल। मुकुंद माधव गोविंद केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल, हरि हरि बोल, हरि हरि बोल, हरि हरि बोल, हरि हरि बोल। कृष्ण कृष्ण बोल, कृष्ण कृष्ण बोल, कृष्ण कृष्ण बोल, कृष्ण कृष्ण बोल। मुकुंद माधव गोविंद बोल, केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल, केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल। As you know that there is an upcoming retreat by Pravrajika Divyananda Prana on 8th of April. If you have not already registered, please try to register and join the retreat. You can register here in the office, or you can do it online as well. And also tomorrow, the first Saturday of the month of April, somehow it gets, the April 1st gets associated with unnecessary wrong things. But let us do good thing on that day. It is the first Saturday and we have day-long meditation as per our practice. So it begins at noon time and continues till 8 p.m. or a little later. So just to let you know, remind you of that. So, okay then. Thank you very much.